This time we'll call the February 15th, 2021 Planning Board meeting to order. We're going to skip the Pledge of Allegiance, and at this time we'll ask Pam to go over all the virtual meeting instructions.
Sorry, it's a mask thing.
Mask and glasses don't work well.
They really don't. Good evening. All attendees that have joined the meeting tonight have joined muted. If you wish to speak during the meeting, you will need to notify staff you wish to speak. If you're joining the meeting online and wish to speak, please press the raise hand button. If you are joining the meeting via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. After you've raised your hand, staff will recognize you to speak by calling out your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number. You'll be unmuted at this time and allowed to speak. Once you've finished speaking, you will be muted for the remainder of the meeting. If you wish to speak again, you'll need to raise your hand again.
Thank you. Looks like we have enough planning board members here to meet quorum. This time we'll head right into item 2A, the approval of the meeting minutes from January 12th, 2021. Everyone had a chance to review these minutes? If so, does anyone have any changes or corrections to be made? And if not, we'll entertain a motion.
Move they be approved as written.
Got a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right. This time we're going to read a blanket statement about public hearings as we head into item 4. Public hearings are a time for petitioners to present requests and for the public to state their concerns and voice opinions in favor or in opposition of these requests. If you wish to speak, there is no podium, but raise your hand on the virtual meeting. State your name and address for the record before speaking in regards to the request. Due to the COVID-19 state mandate, the public will only have access and input to this meeting using Zoom. Please use the link on the town's website to obtain the information on how you can attend or view the meeting. This time we'll go into public hearing item number 4, Town Code Amendment, the Town of Fuquay-Varina Land Development Ordinance Amendment number 13, CTA-2020-07. Purpose of this agenda item is to consider proposed text amendment to the Town Code of Ordinances, Part 9 Land Development Ordinance, Amendment 13, that will address several areas for improvement. Further information will be provided by staff.
Thank you. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official records of the town. The town staff and the community have gained significant experience using the Land Development Ordinance since its adoption in December 2016, and a better understanding of its intent and proper function. As a result, this amendment seeks to harness that experience in the form of clarifications and technical corrections to the LDO's language. The proposed changes are as follows. Section 1, Article F, drive-in movie theater, has been added as a use to the permitted use table. This use will be permissible by special use permit in the corridor commercial, general commercial, and research light industrial zoning districts. Additionally, development standards have been added to Article F and discussed fully later in the report. See Attachment A. Drive-in movie theater use standards will include the following: minimum lot sizes, no less than 5 acres, no amplified sound, permanent restrooms shall be provided, all vehicular driving and parking surfaces shall be paved, concession stands, play structures, and mobile restaurants may be incorporated, and hours of operation shall be between 8 a.m. and midnight. The drive-in movie theater use has been added to this section, and reasonable standards have been outlined to develop this use. This use is permitted by special use permit only to allow development approval to happen on a case-by-case basis to establish additional regulations where they may be necessary to avoid neighbor property nuisance. Additionally, the creation of this use provides for another means of public entertainment amenities while still adhering to socially distanced regulations. The place of worship has been shifted out of the residential and commercial districts and designated for only office and institutional and research light industrial. It is hereby permitted by right in the office and institutional district and by special use permit in research light industrial. This zoning recommendation is in an effort to better align similar development needs and constraints of the place of worship use with other institutional uses like schools, specifically concerning security, cross-access, and connectivity elements. A place of worship and an educational facility share many development challenges that are not present in typical commercial development. Today's worship centers serve many functions, including daycare, senior citizen activities, youth recreation, community support, and related social services at all times during the day and throughout the week. These ancillary institutional church uses are another reason staff recommends alignment with institutional uses in the O&I zoning district. For the purpose of operating a worship center in the Research Light Industrial District, a petitioner will apply for a special use permit to ensure the proposed use is appropriate at the requested location and provide the proper accommodations for parking and accessibility. Permitting places of worship by right with an approved special use permit in the light industrial districts offers an alternative for smaller and starting groups and is consistent with several of our peer communities. The temporary place of worship has been removed from the permitted use table as an allowed use. The removal of this temporary place of worship provision aligns with our peer communities and eliminates an underutilized use. The place of worship permitted use development standards have been edited to reflect the edits made to the permitted use table. Clarifications have been made to the residential zoning district section to refer the user to the change in nonconforming use section in Article K. Since many of the town's existing worship centers are currently located in residential zoning districts, accommodations have been added to the nonconformity section, allowing existing worship centers to continue operations and expand in the future using the special use permit process that was and is currently applicable to them. The temporary place of worship use standards have been removed from the use standards section as the use has been removed as an allowed use from the permitted use table. Section 2, Article J, Section 9-1462 Recreation Standards, which contain guidelines on the town's ability to assess and collect recreation fees on new development to provide recreation opportunities to future residents, have been completely rewritten to provide clarity. Further changes have been made that provide conformity with the recently established North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 160D. The new Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes consolidates current city and county statutes for development regulation into a unified chapter. While a full land development ordinance amendment on Chapter 160D is forthcoming, it was important to include this portion with this amendment due to ongoing town development. To provide parks, recreation, open space, or greenway sites to serve the community's future residents, the town is authorized by the general statute to dedicate or reserve specific recreation areas or assess fees to develop recreation sites. Currently, the town assesses and collects rec unit fees under Article J, Subdivision Regulations, Section 9-1462, Recreation Standards, where the town is authorized and requires the dedication and/or fee determined by the per acre value of the entire parcel of land multiplied by the acreage amount of the required dedicated land. The recreation fee to be paid in lieu of land dedicated shall be reflected per dwelling unit in the adopted fee schedule for that fiscal year. The town's current rec unit fee that was adopted January 3, 2006 is $1,000 per single family unit. On May 7, 2018, the town adopted a multifamily rec unit fee of $25,000 per acre of development. Our current ordinance, Recreation Unit Fee Standards, provides for either the dedication of recreation land at 1/35 of an acre or the fee in lieu payment, but most developers have opted to pay the $1,000 per lot fee at the time of plat recordation or $25,000 per acre for multifamily at building permit. The new NCGS 160D is specific about how rec unit fees are to be calculated and charged. Staff recommends that the town's land development ordinance and fee schedule be amended to align with the statutory language included in the new general statute. This amendment will allow for a developer's choice of dedicating and/or developing land at 1/20th per acre dwelling unit or paying a fee in lieu. The dedication of land shall not be less than 1/20th of an acre times the number of dwelling units or lots, whichever is greater. Land located within a 100-year floodplain, slopes greater than 15%, or land that is located in an overhead utility easement shall not be approved or accepted for dedication. Where a fee in lieu is paid instead of land dedication, the amount of the subdivision fee shall be determined by the land's tax value and the number of lots proposed. The total fee in lieu shall not exceed the land's area value that would have otherwise been required to be dedicated. The property's value shall be determined by fair market value, for which the town's planning director shall utilize available property tax value information. If there's a disagreement over the value of the land, this dispute shall be settled before a special committee as defined in this recommendation. Fees collected in lieu of land donation shall be held in a special fund by the town and used by the town to acquire and develop public recreation areas as shown in the town's Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan, and for no other purpose. Section 3, Article K. Language has been added to the change in nonconforming use section, which allows for places of worship established prior to the adoption of this text amendment in residential districts to expand with an updated and approved special use permit and site plan. This change is to avoid creating nonconformities within a use that is often subject to expansion. Section 4, Article P. Language has been struck from this section of the article referring to both Planning Board and Board of Adjustment regarding the establishment of the chair, vice chair, and acting chair positions, and now refers the user to the Planning Board or Board of Adjustment bylaws, respectively. These changes are to remove redundancy and avoid conflicting language. All information on these topics will now be contained within the bylaws. Section 5, Article S. The definition for drive-in movie theater use has been established in this section. The definition for place of worship temporary has been struck from this section. Section 6, Appendix A, a grammatical edit wherein the word for has been replaced with the word floor. Staff recommends approval of the proposed town code amendment. It is reasonable and in the public's best interest as it improves upon the land development ordinance intent to modernize, provides sustainability, and allows for ease of use and enforcement specifically concerning the town's current standards. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was a mouthful. Before we open up the public hearing, does anybody have any questions for Pam or for anybody on staff?
I have one, please. Who is the special committee? The planning director and?
I believe the special committee, if they are challenging the fee, it is appointed, it clearly states it in the amendment, but I believe it is an assessor picked by the town, an assessor picked by the petitionee, the developer, and then those two pick a third person.
An outside assessor? Okay. And why are we changing the worship? Has something come up that's flagged that, or is that just formality?
This has been ongoing. We have had a number of issues over time, issues with cross-access, security concerns, and things like that, that places of worship don't necessarily fit in with all of our requirements for commercial development, and we feel that they're more appropriate, similar. In the past, we moved schools over to the O&I district, and that's been very successful. And because they share a lot of the same concerns with security and cross-access and some of those other things, it seemed inappropriate to kind of give them their own place in a similar method as we handle schools.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems pretty consistent. We approved a few months ago with the cross-access thing we all went through with.
Yeah.
I think the petitioner even compared it to schools when he was doing it.
Do special use permits expire?
I believe you have a year to get moving on them, but other than that, no, they don't. So in fact, the Hilltop Church that recently did it, they did a whole phased, and as long as they start the first phase within the year, that kicks it off and keeps it alive in a sense.
But those improvements be grandfathered, so they wouldn't be looking to constantly update special use permits unless they wanted to do another addition.
Exactly.
Then they'd get another special use permit.
Yeah. Just so we're clear, like churches that are currently in operation, if they wanted to make an amendment or they wanted to make a expansion, they could still do that. They still have an avenue to do that through our ordinance with the way this is written, correct?
All churches in residential zoning districts, yes.
Yeah.
Any church. We have a very small number of churches that are in commercial districts right now. I believe it is only four. Four churches
okay.
would actually be impacted by this, and they will become non-conforming uses. They may continue to operate as is. If they wanted to expand, then that would predicate a rezoning to the O&I district.
Okay, so they couldn't even go through a special use district in the commercial at this point. So we only have 4 out of.
Yes, and in fact, one of those is already split zoned, CC and O&I. So half of it is already in the O&I district.
a
So
pretty
really,
easy
it's only
rezoning.
3.5
I got you.
this would impact.
That's a pretty easy rezoning there. Anybody else have any questions for Pam? I guess at this time we'll open it up and ask if anybody wants to speak in favor of this public hearing agenda item.
All right now we have one hand raised. John Adcock. Please unmute your mic.
Good evening. You guys hear me okay?
We can.
Mr. Chair, board members, thank you for this opportunity. Appreciate planning staff doing a great job with the really lengthy text amendment they're submitting. I have a few comments. It also relates to another matter on the agenda tonight. But first of all, regarding the reallocation of churches across the jurisdiction, I mean, this is a jurisdictional downzoning regarding places of worship. Currently places of worship are permitted in 13 zoning districts in this jurisdiction out of 18 total zoning districts. By operation of this amendment, churches would only be permitted in 2 zoning districts, which currently is 13. There are comparable secular uses that are not being subjected to this type of this reclassification. Banquet halls, for instance, where people assemble. There are 10 districts in which they're either permitted or special use. Conference center is a permitted use or a special use in 11 zoning districts. Community services 8 and civic club 7. So I just asked the board to take that in consideration, that this is a pretty dramatic change as far as how churches will be allowed to be located in this jurisdiction going forward. Regarding the specific standards that are in section 12.5D, I think, place of worship in the research light industrial district, there are specific standards that are identified that must be satisfied for a church or place of worship to obtain a special use permit. Regarding the accessibility and parking standard, it states that a place of worship shall use, the place of worship use shall only be permitted in structures that meet the North Carolina Building Code for assembly uses. One of the questions I have is, why is this standard being applied to places of worship and not to other uses where people assemble, such as a banquet hall, a conference center, those types of uses? Also, the Board of Adjustment, neither the town has a jurisdiction to alter or amend the state building code. So when someone comes forward with a petition or plans on building a church or a place of worship, they have to meet, independent from anything in the zoning, in the LDO, the proponent or applicant for that use has got to meet the North Carolina Building Code in order to get a certificate of occupancy. So it seems that this puts an additional burden on a place of worship, and at the same time, it's really a matter that is dealt with under the building code, not the zoning code. And the same with the parking. Obviously, there are parking requirements in the LDO, and when there's a site plan submitted for improvement to the property, those parking requirements have got to be demonstrated they're satisfied, or they're not going to be granted the site plan. I just question why these standards are being placed on a place of worship, and really I think that would suggest that they may be unnecessary, because we have a standalone building code as well as a standalone, unless there's a variance from the parking code, those requirements are in place. The other issue, which Mr. Chair just pointed out or addressed regarding the nonconformity, section 9-1502, I just want to emphasize that this does pertain only to churches in existing residential districts. The staff has pointed out there are 4 churches, and I don't doubt or question that, but it seems to be, fair to have a rather uniform system of nonconformity, dealing with a nonconformity for a place of worship, applying the same standards to those in a residential district as you would in a commercial district. So that's my comments. I mean, the staff is doing a great job trying to get the LDO, continually to improve the LDO, and this is part of that process. I just offer those comments as to this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. guess we'll go with that was in opposition, not necessarily in favor, maybe. Anybody else wish to speak in favor of?
I see no hands raised.
All right, we'll turn it over to the opposition side this time. Anybody want to speak in opposition?
I see no hands raised.
All right, I guess at this time we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion. I've got a couple questions, kind of in light of pretty good points by Mr. Adcock there. I mean, how do we compare when we're doing this to some of our other neighbors like Holly Springs or Apex or anybody else as far as classification of churches and where they apply in the zoning? And I mean, seems to make sense to me that we're putting them in an office and institutional if that's what we're doing with cross-access, and that's kind of almost what the main point was made when the whole cross-access thing brought in was that they are aligned with schools because, you know, the safety and the security and the operation of the time of the day. And then now we're hearing, well, maybe that's not fair. Well, we kind of can't have our cake and eat it too. So, any idea how our neighbors are dealing with this?
Right. So I'll take that on two sides. One, several of our neighbors do also permit the use in their like the light industrial districts. This becomes an opportunity for startup churches and churches that may not own their own property and things like that to rent space in an R&D or a warehouse building. To address also the comments that he made specifically about the building permit and parking, many of these buildings might not need, what we want to do is make sure they do go through the permit process. If it's an existing building, that it's not triggering a site plan, and that's why the parking we felt was important to ensure that they had enough parking for this use. It is a good point, and maybe there's an adjustment to the language that we could make in the resolution tonight in that the building permit may not have to meet the building permit for an assembly use at this time, but that's a condition instead of a finding of fact. It'd be a condition that they will not be able to start operating as a church in that location until the building code for assembly use. The key is we don't want to just give a special use permit out and said you can go be a church and they start operating and they don't go through any of the further steps in an existing building. I think that's the key point there.
Gotcha.
So as far as many of our neighbors do not categorize churches in the O&I district, I think that is something that we have touched on because of the issues with the cross-access and connectivity. But again, many of our neighbors do allow them in the light industrial areas.
Gotcha. Is there any reason why we didn't include like a special use permit for those churches that are in the commercial districts? Just trying to get it completely out of the commercial? I mean, we're giving the residential side, or is it because it was just so few of a percentage, or?
Right. I mean, it doesn't, because the numbers were so low, and I really think we would support a rezoning in those. It just seems like a cleaner solution.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, I mean, how many of these that are in this area are we going to, if somebody comes through a rezoning to rezone a church that's in a commercial district to O&I, is it going to be against land use plan, or is it going to be some reason why staff or we wouldn't support that rezoning effort?
I mean, obviously, this is a case-by-case basis,
Sure.
but I would think that if it's an existing church, we would support them continuing to be an existing church.
Yeah.
And then the last, he mentioned banquet halls and conference centers and things like that. While those are assembly uses, those are all more commercial uses that generally don't have issues with the connectivity and security and cross-access that we're finding with the churches. So.
All right. That's it. Anybody else got any more questions? Discussion? Motion?
Well, if we have no more discussion, I will make a motion to recommend approval of CTA 2020-07 Amendment 13 with a text adjustment that we discussed.
It's a condition.
It's a condition, right?
Versus a finding of fact.
Exactly.
All right, we got a motion. Got a second?
I second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. We'll move on to public hearing item 4B. Zoning map amendment, Wilbon Properties LLC, 210 and 0 Cooley Farm Road and 0 Longfellow Street, pins 0656583491, 0656594461, and 0656690567, REZ 2020-17. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a requested zoning map amendment for a total of 36.52 acres located at 210 and 0 Cooley Farm Road and 0 Longfellow Street from the residential agricultural RA and residential low density RLD zoning districts to the residential mixed use RMU neighborhood mixed-use NMU, and urban mixed-use UMU zoning districts. This time, further information will be presented by staff.
Thank you. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official records of the town. The subject properties total 36.52 acres and are partially located in the town's corporate limits. 0 Coley Farm Road is the subject of an annexation ANX 2013 currently under consideration by the town board. The subject properties are currently vacant, either being forested or agricultural land. The zoning map amendment requests approval of the residential mixed use, neighborhood mixed use, and urban mixed use zoning districts at the subject properties, which are intended to permit a variety of residential and non-residential uses. These are form-based zoning districts which require a master plan with the zoning approval and is included herein. The petitioner has requested the following voluntary conditions to be made applicable to the subject properties. Vinyl siding is not permitted. Vinyl windows, decorative elements, and trim is permitted. Anti-monotony provisions in order to promote variation in home appearance, no front elevation and color palette combination, including door color, shall be duplicated for 3 lots in a row or directly across the street. Roof lines shall be broken up vertically or horizontally along the front facade, such that no roof line is in a single mass. The applicant's vision for overall quality shall be governed by the following architectural themes: contemporary modern farm, transitional, craftsman, or timeless designs. At least 2 of the following materials shall be utilized on each facade: wood or cement board and batten, fiber cement siding, wood or cement shingle, masonry brick, brick veneer, masonry stone, stone veneer, or synthetic stone. Secondary material must comprise at least 20% of the front facade. At least 35% of residential units shall have a full masonry facade extending up to at least the 2nd floor. In addition to the commitments above, each residential unit shall contain at least 3 of the following design features: walk-up porch, dormer or gable, 2nd-story porch or balcony, bay window, architectural shingles, metal roof accent, cornice or corbel. All units shall provide a minimum 25% glazing on the front door or provide a transom. Attached townhome buildings shall have a front facade modulation minimum of 12 inches in depth between each unit. All units shall contain a covered porch or front entryway. Right-of-way visibility: any front, side, or rear facade visible from a public right-of-way, existing or proposed, shall have decorative trim or shutters on all standard windows. Garages: all residential dwelling units shall contain a garage. All residential garages will be rear-loaded except the maximum 25% permitted by the form-based code to be front-loaded. Garage doors shall contain windows, decorative details, and/or carriage-style adornments. Construction access shall be restricted from entering the project area from the east along Washington Street. The landscape buffer adjacent to Wake County PIN 06566955784, Lincoln Heights Elementary, shall be increased from a 20-foot Type B landscape buffer to a 20-foot Type A landscape buffer. A minimum 4-foot high earthen berm shall be constructed within the buffer. Apartments, if proposed, shall be vertical mixed use, commercial or office first floor with multifamily above. Each zoning district shall contain a minimum of 4 different housing widths. Each width offering shall be unique in design and square footage. The minimum qualifying heritage tree size shall be reduced from 24 inches to 18 inches diameter breast height. A minimum 6-foot high privacy fence shall be installed adjacent to existing single-family lots. The eastern side path along Northwest Judd Parkway shall extend to the intersection with Coley Farm Road. In order to create a more comprehensive transportation network, improvements along the north side of Coley Farm Road, including pavement, sidewalk, and curb and gutter, shall extend west beyond the project's frontage and tie into the newly constructed sidewalk, pavement, and curb and gutter at the intersection with Northwest Judd Parkway. Public water infrastructure: the project shall construct a new 12-inch public water main from the intersection of Northwest Judd Parkway and North Carolina Highway 42, approximately 3,260 linear feet north along Northwest Judd Parkway, and terminate at the project's northmost extent. All non-residential buildings and civic spaces shall contain at least 1 bicycle rack with parking for at least 4 bicycles. and the Northwest Judd Parkway thoroughfare buffer shall be increased from a Type C transitional buffer to a Type B semi-opaque buffer if the rear of residential units is visible from the thoroughfare. The master plan is characterized by a mixture of commercial, civic areas, attached and detached residential units set close to the street. It provides for an overall flexible design that considers integration of uses, connectivity, character, transportation options, and preservation of natural features. To comply with zoning map amendment petition requirements, the associated master plan, document, and related maps shall identify permitted uses, arrangement of uses, open space, thoroughfare network, utilities, pedestrian network, architectural design, and standards, building layout, and landscaping. The master plan shall also adhere to all other standards provided by Article Q and Appendix B of the Land Development Ordinance. The master plan proposes a maximum density of 12 dwelling units per acre in the RMU zoning district and 14 units per acre in the NMU zoning district. The proposed densities are less than the maximum allowable densities of 18 dwelling units per acre in the RMU zoning district and 22 dwelling units per acre in the NMU zoning district. The LDO does not implement a maximum density in the UMU zoning district. However, the master plan proposes a maximum density of 16 dwelling units per acre. The location of and reduced density within the RMU and NMU districts are intended to provide a transitional area from existing single-family neighborhoods to the north of the site to the more commercial and urban character of this form-based project. Non-residential development is included in all 3 zoning districts, with non-residential areas located along the frontages of future Northwest Judd Parkway and Coley Farm Road. The highest intensity non-residential uses are located in the UMU and NMU districts. It is the intention of the LDO to permit the higher density uses furthest from adjacent lower density residential neighborhoods and in proximity to major thoroughfares as the master plan proposes. Civic space is green space dedicated for community use and can take many forms for both active and passive recreation. The master plan proposes a number of civic spaces including playgrounds, squares, greens, and a greenway, the later which is intended to connect the proposed side path infrastructure along the future Northwest Judd Parkway. The minimum civic space required in a form-based zoning district master plan is 5% of the project area. The proposed master plan provides for a dedication of 8.24 of the project area, or a total of 3 acres. Surrounding properties are a mix of civic and institutional, residential, and heavy industrial uses. Lincoln Heights Elementary School is directly adjacent to the eastern side of the subject properties. Single-family residential properties are located to the west and northeast of the subject properties, while storage and metalworking facilities are located to the southeast. Furthermore, the Summerdale and Union Station developments, both currently under construction, are located to the southeast and southwest, respectively, of the subject properties. The 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan calls for the mixed-use neighborhood classification at the subject properties and are classified as being form-based in nature. The mixed-use neighborhood classification calls for a mix of uses that offers residents the opportunity to live, work, shop, and play in one community. Typically, these neighborhoods include a mixture of housing types and residential densities, integrated with goods and services in a walkable center that residents visit on a daily basis. The mixed-use neighborhood classification supports and encourages pedestrian and bicycle activity through the use of small blocks and streets and rear parking strategies to minimize the impact of vehicular traffic on development. Typical densities in a mixed-use neighborhood classification range between 4 and 80 dwelling units per acre. The requested zoning districts are consistent with the 2035 Land Use Plan. Public water and sewer are available to serve the subject properties and will be installed with future development. The subject properties are located along and have access to future Northwest Judd Parkway, Coley Farm Road, and Washington Street. The future Northwest Judd Parkway is identified as a 4-lane median divided road with side paths with 110-foot right-of-way. Future Northwest Judd Parkway is anticipated to have a carrying capacity of 35,100 average daily trips. Coley Farm Road and Washington Street are both classified as local streets by the town's 2035 Community Transportation Plan. As Coley Farm Road is maintained by NCDOT, 2019 traffic counts are available and indicate 1,400 average daily trips in front of the subject properties. Washington Street is not maintained by NCDOT, and as such, traffic counts are not available. It is anticipated that Washington Street will have connection to future Northwest Judd Parkway as part of this master plan. Additionally, the CTP shows a future collector street on the subject properties connecting the future Washington Street extension to a future extension of Longfellow Street. The petitioner held a neighborhood meeting on November 10, 2020. The meeting report is attached, and staff takes no position as to its content. Staff recommends approval of the proposed zoning map amendment. It is consistent with the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan and is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the following reasons. 1. The master plan included with the petition fulfills the intent of the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan by establishing viable non-residential areas along the Northwest Judd Parkway, creating the opportunity for non-residential uses to serve residents in a walkable environment. 2. Transitions are proposed between existing and future development, with higher intensity uses located along the major thoroughfares and lower intensity uses located adjacent to existing development to improve compatibility. 3. An appropriate internal transportation network is provided throughout the entire development. There are several access points for multiple means of ingress and egress to the subject property, and also an adequate network of internal streets that connect each district within the proposed master plan through a variety of street types and sizes to adequately carry anticipated traffic and to provide reasonable vehicular and pedestrian traffic accommodations. And 4, the requested zoning map amendment is consistent with the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan designation of mixed-use neighborhood and would allow for the proposed uses. Prior to January 12, 2021, regular planning board meeting, the petitioner requested this item be postponed until the February 15, 2021 meeting. Since the public hearing was not open, the request was re-advertised. I am available to answer any questions.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions before we open the public hearing? I have a couple quick things. If anybody else does. Michelle, did you have one?
Just one quick question. So Washington Street was never, we never had plans in a plan to make a connection from Washington Street to Judd Parkway. Is that correct?
It is on the CTP.
It is, okay. All right.
Pam, was comment number, or the condition number 10, apartments if proposed shall be vertical mixed use, was that put in there as a result kind of our other one where we got apartments within 3,000 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think they have any specific plans for the non-residential portions, but they just clarified that to make sure it was clear.
I know Bay Trees, it's got to be getting close to 3,000 feet over there, I think, the Bay Tree Apartments.
Yeah, I haven't even measured that one just because it wasn't.
So they just offered that one up, that wasn't it? Okay, okay, that's good to know. The only other thing I was gonna ask is, I know that this is in an MUN on the land use plan, and that it's got a boundary around it, and those boundaries are generally like, I think they're community centers, and aren't there some restrictions within that whole entire big tract, within the ordinance? You know, they've got the boundaries around the certain areas that are isolated as mixed-use neighborhoods and villages. Is there any way we're keeping track of any of those, how this one, I think this is the first one in that, that particular pod.
Right. I think the mixed-use neighborhood in the land use plan is intended to be more residential than commercial. Where you go with employment village or commercial village, it's kind of the flip. And I think that's more what we are keeping an overall track of. That is something definitely that we hope to address with a form-based update in the near future, because the ordinance does not specifically speak to the 3 different types of form-based zoning and what the overall goals for those larger areas are. In the ordinance, it actually just has the calculations to do based on the size of that parcel.
Yeah.
So that is something that we will need to address. This one meets the guidelines for mixed-use neighborhood as laid out in both the land use plan and the ordinance.
Okay, so we're good to go there. All righty, any more questions for Pam before we open up the public hearing? All right, this time we'll open up the public hearing, and anybody wish to speak in favor of this zoning map amendment?
Yep, I have a hand raised. Brian Duncan, please unmute your mic.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. I will keep it brief. Thank you, Pam, for that lengthy introduction. My name is Brian Duncan. I'm with the Spalding Group, and my address is 1501 Miranda Woods Lane in Fuquay. First off, I want to thank staff for all of their work in getting this project to this point. There was a lot of back and forth, and I think a lot of very positive things that came out of our correspondence with both staff and management, for that matter. I think the overall intent for this project is to set a high standard for development along this new stretch of Judd Parkway. We really want it to be something special and unique, and I think we've provided that with a lot of the various conditions that we presented in the written document and master plan. We really wanted to make this neighborhood feel like an extension of the Lincoln Heights neighborhood instead of your traditional development, which kind of isolates the development with buffers and et cetera. So we have faced a lot of the units along Washington Street and Judd to actually face the street to hopefully achieve more of that urban feel. We've provided appropriate and I think enhanced transitions to Lincoln Heights and adjacent single-family residences. We had a great discussion with Lincoln Heights. They are very excited for this neighborhood and for the opportunity for perhaps teachers or staff members of the school to live within walking distance, and as well as providing just overall pedestrian connectivity along Judd and Washington Street throughout the neighborhood and the various non-residential uses that are going to be within. We tried to provide some extras within the project just to make it just even that much more special. So we have a educational greenway path along the southern end that connects Judd Parkway to Coley Farm. That could be like just a nice little escape into a naturally preserved area, maybe as a shortcut for those walking through that area. We've extended the side path down to the intersection of Coley Farm and Judd, just to create some cohesiveness in that area, and just various things like bicycle racks, et cetera, throughout the neighborhood. And with that, we're proud of this proposal, and we're available for any questions. My partner, Tom Spalding, is also on the call. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak in favor?
There are no other hands raised.
All right, anybody wish to speak in opposition?
See no hands raised.
All right, at this time, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and a possible motion. Any questions, discussion, motions? Any takers?
I make a motion to approve REZ 2020-17 as presented.
All right, got a motion, you got a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, proceed by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, cruising on along. All right, this time we'll go to item 4C, zoning map amendment, Raleigh Home Group LLC, 1994 North Carolina 42 Highway, pin 0687209783, REZ 2020-21. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a requested zoning map amendment for a total of 0.66 acres located at 1994 North Carolina Highway 42 from the residential agricultural RA zoning district to the neighborhood commercial conditional NC-CZD zoning district. This time, further information will be presented by staff.
Thank you. I'm submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official records of the town. The subject property totals 0.66 acres and is located in the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction. The property is the subject of a voluntary annexation petition request ANX 2020-15. There is currently one structure on the property. The zoning map amendment petition requests the approval of the neighborhood commercial conditional zoning district. This zoning district is intended to permit small-scale, minimal-intensity commercial and office development that primarily serves the immediate surrounding neighborhoods. The petitioner has requested the following permitted use conditions be made applicable to this subject property. 1, office, business, professional. 2, retail sales and services. Surrounding properties are a mix of cleared agricultural land, single-family residential, retail, and office and institutional. Residential properties are generally to the north and west of the subject property. Retail and office uses are diagonally to the northeast of the property. Furthermore, a church and cemetery are to the east of the property in the urban service area. The 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan calls for the small-scale commercial center classification at the subject property. The Land Use Plan's recommendation, CF1, invest in existing growth areas, which incentivizes development projects in planned growth areas like the NC 42 Highway Corridor. As such, the requested zoning district is consistent with the 2035 Land Use Plan classification. Public water is available to serve the subject property. Public sewer is not available at this time. The subject property has access to North Carolina 42 Highway and Walter Myatt Road. The 2035 Community Transportation Plan classifies NC 42 Highway as a 120-foot right-of-way, while Walter Myatt Road is classified as a 70-foot right-of-way. NC 42 Highway is identified as a 4-lane median divided road with side paths with a carrying capacity of 40,500 average daily trips. Walter Myatt Road is identified as a 2-lane road with a sidewalk and side path with a carrying capacity of 11,400 average daily trips. 2018 NCDOT traffic counts indicate a volume of 11,500 average daily trips on NC 42 Highway and a volume of 1,400 average daily trips on Walter Myatt Road. The petitioner held a neighborhood meeting on December 14, 2020 at 1994 NC 42 Highway via the Zoom web application. The meeting report is attached and staff takes no position as to its content. Staff recommends approval of the proposed zoning map amendment as it is consistent with the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan and reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the following reasons. 1, the requested zoning map amendment is consistent with the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan's designation of a small-scale commercial center. 2, conditions proposed by the petitioner effectively limit future development so that it is compatible with the surrounding areas. And 3, the requested zoning map amendment is consistent with the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan's recommendation CF1, invest in existing growth areas. I am available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Pam? All right. This time we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak in favor of this zoning map amendment?
Yep, we have one hand raised. Preston Perry, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, board. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
All right, I'll be brief. I just wanted to say a few words. I appreciate the work the town's done thus far as we tried to work through this, and we're certainly looking forward to the opportunity to bring our office into Fuquay. Appreciate the board's consideration and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in favor?
I see no other hands raised.
All right, we'll flip it around. Anybody want to speak in opposition?
There are no hands raised.
All right, at this time, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and motion.
Just one quick thing. He may know better. Wasn't this part of the Campo, one of their study areas, this whole intersection? I mean, does that play in?
Jim, can you speak in there? That way they can get...
Rezoning this to commercial? And I can't recall the plan, what exactly, but this is one of the hot spots in the transportation plan, looking to realign roads or do something with roads.
It doesn't impact this parcel.
It doesn't. So, I mean, basically, there's an existing building there that they are interested in using as an office.
Sure.
And that is a non-conforming use when it's
Sure.
zoned residential, so.
Yeah, no,
This use will not be triggering a site plan that would trigger road improvements.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no concern with commercial going along 42. Just didn't know if we were pigeonholing ourselves with anything Campo was going to do in the future to try to fix this situation. I'm good.
If I'm not mistaken, the town's comprehensive transportation plan has an extension of Hilltop Road over to Walter Myatt Road, which is pretty consistent with what the hotspot study came up with, which goes behind this property and doesn't seem to impact it.
Right. And again, that's no active plan that I know. That is obviously just on the CTP triggered by site or subdivision plans.
Sure.
Right, required improvements.
Just thought I'd ask. I remembered this study.
It was a fun one.
Intersection.
Yeah, that one's a little bit, it's one of the couple that we have in town that are a little goofy. All right, anybody want to make a motion?
I I'll make a motion we approve REZ 2020-21, 1994 NC 42 highway.
Got a motion, got a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor by signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 4D, zoning map amendment and land use plan amendment. Fuquay-Varina Warehouse and Storage LLC, 6109 South NC 55 and 1206 North Carolina 42 Highway, pin 0677203753 and 0677208852, REZ 2020-22. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a requested zoning map amendment for a total of 8.34 acres located at 6109 South North Carolina 55 Highway and 1206 North Carolina 42 Highway from the heavy industrial HI zoning district to the corridor commercial CC-CZD zoning district and the corresponding land use plan amendment at 1206 NC 42 Highway from Employment Village EV to light industrial. As this one's kind of related to item 4A, I think staff has recommended that this case be tabled to the March 15th, 2020 Planning Board to allow further discussion with the petitioner regarding the appropriate zoning district and land use plan designation for the property given the intended use so that the public hearing will not be opened at this evening. I would take a motion to table based on staff's recommendation.
So, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are done with public hearings. This time we'll move on to other business. Item 5A, preliminary subdivision plat, Lakestone Tract 5, sub-PR-2020-09. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider a preliminary subdivision plat submitted by George Finch, Booney & Associates, PA, called Lakestone Tract 5, located at 635 Lakestone Commons Avenue. Further information will be presented by staff.
Thank you. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official records of the town. The submitted preliminary subdivision, Lakestone Tract 5, is located at 635 Lakestone Commons Avenue on 9.538 acres in the corridor commercial zoning district. The preliminary subdivision plat proposes a mixed-use development with 48 townhomes on a residential area of 7.07 square feet and 2 future commercial lots on a combined commercial area of 2.468 square feet. The minimum provided townhouse lot size is 1,260 square feet, and the maximum provided townhouse lot size is 1,999 square feet. Following the 15% open space requirement for townhouse developments, a minimum of 1.06 acres of overall open space is required. There are 3.634 acres of overall open space provided. Vehicular access to the project area is provided via 2 connections to the extended commercial service road and via 1 connection to Lakestone Commons Avenue. The commercial service road is a private road and Lakestone Commons Avenue is a local street. The commercial service road currently has 2 lanes and Lakeshore Commons Avenue currently has 4 lanes with a median and side paths. Approximately 0.35 miles from the subject property, 2019 NCDOT traffic counts on North Main Street indicate a volume of 32,500 average daily trips. 1 street stub will be provided to the west of the site. Public water and sewer are available to serve the subject properties and will be installed by the developer. The proposed preliminary subdivision plat meets all town requirements, and as such, staff recommends approval. I am available for any questions.
I have just one as it relates to the stub street. Is there a reason why we're approving stub streets that aren't perpendicular to property lines? Is that a grading issue? Is there, do you have any idea? I mean,
There are some extreme slopes right there, and those existing properties to the north have already been developed.
okay, I was wondering, there's lots of retaining walls on this thing. I'm looking at, man, we get into trouble when we start stubbing streets out at weird angles and
It's a whole,
how you leave pavement cuts and for the guy next door without seeing how it went in the future. I figured it was probably something with the slope. Any other questions for staff?
yeah, one thing just to clarify, that you said side path, but they're not side paths on that road currently. It's just sidewalks, right? Are they having to turn one side into a side path?
They might, yeah, let me see what that, I think in some of these cases, it's whatever's determined. Sometimes there's a combination, so they may have to, depending if the CTP says side path and there's an existing 5-foot sidewalk, generally speaking, they just add an additional 5 feet. We've had that situation several times on Judd Parkway.
Are they just adding concrete to that? I mean, to make it from a sidewalk to a side path, it's a concrete side path and not an asphalt
Yes.
side path.
Yes.
Okay.
It needs to be consistent with every material.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have the option at that point to rip out the existing and put a 10-foot asphalt if they wanted to, or they would just add to the,
Okay.
most cases, they would just add to. They
Yeah.
would supplement.
Okay.
Will that get worked out at CDs, I guess, then? What's
So
that?
that would be along Lakestone Commons, so those would be worked out with the site plan for those commercial properties.
Okay, got you. No more questions.
Any more questions? Anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Lakestone Track 5 preliminary subdivision as presented by staff.
Got a motion? You have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, on item 6A, planning staff report. Purpose of this agenda item is to receive information on the disposition of the planning board's recommendations to the town board of commissioners since January 12th, 2021 planning board meeting. Any questions or anything regarding this one? If not, we'll go right on over it and I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.